Yo guys, what's going on? I'm Tim for The Real Sports Talk. You can find me on Twitter at CashKelly_TRST, and that's Cash Kelly with a K. Day 27 of the MLB season preview videos. You can go to our channel, youtube.com/MrKelstar, and you can look in the playlist, and there's an MLB season preview one. It has every other team, including teams like the Marlins, the Indians, the Giants, the Angels, the Phillies, the Yankees, Rays, Red Sox. It's going in order of who got eliminated from the playoffs first at this point. So tomorrow, the remaining three teams are the Tigers, Rangers, and Cardinals. So we'll get to that. But today we are going to do the Milwaukee Brewers, a team that last year, behind Ryan Braun's MVP season and another really nice season from Prince Fielder, they were able to make the playoffs and go to the NLCS. The first time they've won a playoff series in quite some time. So let's get right into it. Starting at catcher, we'll start with Jonathan Lucroy. Just got a big extension, a 5-year extension this past Tuesday. Last season hit .265 with 12 home runs. The extension didn't pay a ton. He looks like he's a solid overall fielding catcher, and he has a pretty good bat at the plate. He's not going to ever be someone that's going to be one of those catchers that hits 30 home runs, but he is a nice overall player, and he's pretty young, so that is a positive for the Brewers. Backing him up, you have George Contreras, who spent the last 2 seasons in Milwaukee, is a nice backup, hit .252 with 5 home runs last season. This is a nice guy that you are able to bring off the bench. Even last season in the game, I believe he hit for the cycle, so he can give you a decent bat off the bench, and he can give Lucroy a day off, which is always important to have as your catcher. You never want to throw somebody out there that you're just throwing him out there to give the other guy a day off. You want to throw somebody out there that's going to be able to handle the pitching staff and at least give you a decent amount of it, or a decent at bat at the plate, and Contreras can certainly do that. Matt Gamble will take over for Prince Fielder, and this is the big one. Prince Fielder obviously leaving for a 9-year deal to join the Detroit Tigers this offseason, so it all comes down to Gamble, a 26-year-old, so he's not exactly a young rookie, but he essentially is a rookie, although he's seen some time. This is really going to be the first season that he's going to be seeing extended time. I know for the last 2 or 3 seasons he's gotten a cup of coffee, so rookie is not the right word, but this is the first year where he's really going to get a shot to prove himself. Last year in 128 games at AAA, hit 28 home runs and 96 RBIs and hit .310, was among the guys vying for MVP at the AAA level in the league that he is in. I think that Matt Gamble can be a nice player. The problem is he's not going to hit .310. I think they'll hit .278, .285, somewhere like that. I think he's going to hit about 22, 23 home runs and about 75 RBIs, somewhere right in that area. And the problem is he's replacing Prince Fielder, and when you have to come in and replace a guy like Prince Fielder, it's not a fun assignment to have to do. Now, he has, in 2009, when he got some extended time in 61 games, he was able to hit .242 with 5 home runs and 20 RBIs. So he's not going to be a great average, most likely, but I think the power is going to be there. The problem is they probably need more production than what he's going to be able to give them immediately, and that's kind of their problem this season. And we'll have to see what happens with Matt Gamble. At second base, you have Ricky Weeks, and Ricky Weeks really is one of the most underrated players in the game. I think he's easily one of the top 2 or 3 second basemen right now. Last season in 118 games, he got injured. Hit .269 with 20 home runs and 49 RBIs. Also stole 9 bases out of 11 attempts. So he's a really solid overall player, one of the best second basemen in MLB, and a solid fielder. Backing him up, and also being really the only main utility guy the Orioles have, or the Brewers have at this point, and that's kind of a position that you normally you have your one utility guy going into the season, but your other utility guy is going to come out of the minors. He's going to be that guy that's been a AAA guy and all of a sudden just finds it one year and has a couple nice seasons for you. That's kind of the life of a utility infielder. Cesar Sturz has been a starter with the Dodgers and St. Louis first season, and Baltimore for the last 3 seasons. He's never been a great hitter, but he's a solid fielder, and he can steal a lot of bases, and that's the one thing that the Brewers have nice off their bench with him and Carlos Gomez. That is a nice thing that they have off the bench, is the ability to steal. Now, the problem is they don't have a ton of pop off the bench, which is something that they're going to need to address if they are still in contention. Cesar Sturz is a nice backup, and probably one of the better fielding backups in the league. Alex Gonzalez is going to be your starting shortstop. Came over from Milwaukee, or to Milwaukee last season. Only played, or my bad, I'm looking at the wrong numbers. Yeah, I knew that didn't sound right. He played with Atlanta last year in 149 games. He hit 241, 15 home runs. Really, this has always kind of been a guy that's been a tremendous fielder throughout his career, and you wonder how much longer he can keep that up considering he is getting up there in age. But the one thing that you got to know about Alex Gonzalez is that he's kind of it depends what type of year hitter. You can get the 2009 one that only played 112 games, hit 238 with 8 home runs, or you can get the 2010 one that with the Blue Jays and the Braves combined hit 250 with 23 home runs and 88 RBIs. He's never been much of a base stealing threat. His glove's going to be great no matter what, but you would like to get a guy that's going to hit you 17 to 20 home runs instead of 8 to 12 home runs. So we'll see what happens with Alex Gonzalez. At third base, you have Aramis Ramirez, who they just brought in this offseason. Really, he was kind of the consolation prize. We heard that they talked to Jimmy Rollins. They never really had a chance to get Prince Fielder, and quite honestly, it was pretty smart for them not to even really put up a fight, because they were not going to be able to compete with some of the teams like the Dodgers and ultimately the Tigers and the Nationals, the teams that were competing. The Brewers were not going to be able to hand out that type of contract. So they looked and they said, how can we improve our team? They traded away Corey McGee to the or Casey McGee, my bad, to the Pittsburgh Pirates, and they signed Aramis Ramirez to a 3-year deal in the market of, I believe, 30 or the range of about something like $37 million. He is a nice overall third baseman. His issue is staying healthy, but the years he stays healthy, he's going to be a guy for the most part that hits you around, if not over 300, and probably 25 home runs at a minimum. Now, 2009 looks like a bad year, and last year maybe you won't quite get that same production, but you're going to get, my guess for him, about a 297 average with 25 home runs and 90 RBIs. He's a really solid overall third baseman in the field as well. And really, the issue has just been him staying healthy. He's been with the Cubs for the last 8 seasons and the Pirates before that, and has kind of flown under the radar, but he's been a really solid third baseman for a long time now. In left field, then, you have Ryan Braun. We all know what went down with him last season at .332 with 33 home runs and 111 RBIs, stole 30 bases. I believe Matt Kemp should have won the MVP. But Ryan Braun won the MVP, had a tremendous season. I don't think anyone's taking that away from him. I think we all know what went down in the offseason. He got suspended for not steroids. It bothers me when people say that. It was not steroids. It was increased testosterone, which if he was doing it, if he did that to himself, then it is cheating in my mind, but I'm not going to get into my opinion on that. Ultimately, it turned out that they didn't do something right in sending the drug sample to be tested, so his suspension was overturned and he's all good to go now. He's going to be playing this season. He has looked absolutely awful this spring training. Let me pull up his exact numbers. Yeah, he's hit .216 with 2 home runs. You don't normally like to take a lot into spring training, but losing Prince Fielder in the lineup, I know Aramis Ramirez is still going to be pretty solid protection, but he's not going to be Prince Fielder. Losing him in the lineup took a lot. Having him in the lineup really did not. It meant that Ryan Braun didn't always have to be the guy. Ryan Braun, you can mark it down. Ryan Braun is the guy in this lineup. He's the MVP, and taking out a 40 home run guy in Prince Fielder and replacing him with a 27 home run guy in Aramis Ramirez means that, yeah, you got a nice consolation prize, but you're not getting nearly the type of bat that you had in that lineup. And I'm worried about the type of season he's going to have. I think that he spent a lot of energy this offseason trying to fight that off rather than being able, and he really had no choice but to do that, rather than focusing on getting in shape for the season. Now, who am I to say that he isn't in that shape, but I've seen scouts say that Ryan Braun just does not look the same this spring training. I think he's going to have a down year this year. I think he'll hit about 290-something with 22 home runs right in that area. So I think it's going to be a down season, and losing Prince Fielder in that lineup, if he has a down season, is going to be very tough for him or for the Brewers to make the playoffs again. Backing him up in left field, you have Norichika Oki. In spring training so far, he's a Japanese import. In 23 games, he has hit .309 with a home run, and he's stolen 3 bases. So I like what they have. Another guy on this bench, and he's actually the one that is probably going to bring the best bat out of the 3 main guys they have on their bench with Carlos Gomez and also Cesar Torres. I think that he'll bring the most ability to hit. The problem is for a pinch hitter, you don't normally put in a pinch hitter who's just a hitter. You put in like more of a guy that has some pop, and I don't think he's going to have a ton of pop necessarily, but he's going to be able to get you a base hit here and there when he comes in off the bench, and also a base stealing threat. The problem is they have better base stealing threats on that bench, so he's not going to be looked at for that. Potentially in the outfield, you could see him used as a defensive replacement a couple times, but he's not going in for Braun, so you probably won't see that too many times. In center field, you have Nyjer Morgan, a guy who I've always said has had a ton of potential, but has always been too much of a head case to put it all together. Last season, easily had the best year of his career, hit .304 with 4 home runs and 37 RBIs. He's never been a ton of pop guy. Actually, 2009 was probably a better year, but he had a really good season last year. 13 stolen bases and 4 home runs. He was four times he got caught stealing. One of the things that made him so valuable to that team was that he kept his mouth shut in terms of not getting in fights and throwing balls at fans and getting his ass kicked by Gabby Sanchez. But I think that one of the things that was able to make him so good last year and make the Brewers an overall fun team to watch was that this guy was really a catalyst for that team last year. He brought a lot of energy into that clubhouse, which I think a lot of people felt was lacking before. It was a risky move by the Brewers, and it could still backfire. Sometimes you see these type of guys come in and have a great impact for 1 year, and then they don't work out. Ask the Nationals about that. But I think that he is going to be a guy there for the next 2 or 3 seasons. He's still relatively young, only 31 years old, and I like him overall as an outfielder. He's probably better suited to be a right fielder, but you have Corey Hart there, so Nyjer Morgan will be your starting center fielder. Backing him up, the aforementioned Carlos Gonzalez, the guy who was once the big piece in the Johan Santana to the Mets deal. He was the piece that went to the Twins. Never really worked out there, I guess, because he was, and it wasn't that he was a terrible player, he just wasn't really a starting player. And when you get that type of piece back for Johan Santana, it's tough. He was a fringe starting player, better suited probably as a 4th outfielder, which is what he will most likely be this season for the Brewers. He had .258 with them 1 year, 7 home runs. The thing that's so good about him is his ability to steal. The problem is he's not necessarily a guy that's going to come off the bench and get himself on base. So you're going to be talking about putting him in as a pinch runner sometimes for maybe a guy like Aramis Ramirez, and then you bring in Cesar Torres to come in and field the rest of the game. Something like that. It's not like a dream scenario, I guess, but Carlos Gonzalez is a really fast runner, so I like him coming off the bench and also coming in as a defensive replacement sometimes because he is a better fielder than Nyjer Morgan. I like him off the bench. And then Corey Hart will be the starting right fielder. Corey Hart, I think we all know that he has been one of the better right fielders in the game. Last 2 seasons, he had 31 home runs in 2010 and 26. He's going to hit right around .285. The thing that I'm interested to see is he's going to have a bigger role in the lineup this season without Prince Fielder. Can he step up, or maybe do his numbers go down as well? And if Ryan Braun's numbers go down, or he has a tough time getting started this season, can he be that guy that keeps this team afloat for a while, or at least keeps them going and wins them some games? Or do the Brewers maybe need to say this isn't our year, or do they need to potentially even bring somebody else in if they do feel like they can contend, which really with 2 wild cards, I still see this team in a pretty solid rotation. I still see this team in contention, and really a division that lost Albert Pujols, and I don't think people understand how big of a loss that really was. There's no reason the Brewers wouldn't be in contention, so I think that they'll probably add another bat, and that's basically my thoughts on the lineup as I pull up the rotation and the big 3 in the bullpen. We'll start with Yovani Gallardo. One of the most underrated pitchers in the game, 17-10 last year with a .352 ERA. He continues to get better. I think he'll take another step this year. I think he'll have about 17, 18 wins this year, and he'll have about a .345 ERA. So a pretty similar season to last year, and he will give you a complete game here and there. And he threw over 200 innings for the first time in his career last season. So he is a very good pitcher and should be very good for the Brewers for a long time to come. He's only 27 years old still, so Zach Greinke came over last year and had a tough time getting started. The overall numbers do not end up looking that bad. 16-6 with a .383 ERA. I think that some people kind of overrated him. Obviously, in 2009, 16-8 with the 2.16 ERA through 230 innings almost in 6 complete games, 3 of those shutouts. That was an incredible year, hands down. He deserved the Cy Young. But other than that, he's kind of been a number 2 starter the rest of his career. He's been a 3.47 ERA guy, a 3.69 guy. He had a tough time getting started. He had depression issues, but I think that he's kind of figured everything out. His last season in Kansas City was not good, and then last year he had a tough time getting started. I think one of the reasons that the Brewers fans should have hope this year, despite losing Prince Fielder, is the fact that he did not pitch up to his capabilities last season. I would expect an ERA closer to about 3.55, 3.60, right in that area this year, and a few more complete games considering he had 0 last year. And innings-wise, I don't know if it's too smart to push him more than we've seen him because of injury risks, but we'll see what the Brewers do. Randy Wolf will be your number 3 starter. I mean, he's never necessarily been a great starter. I mean, I've seen this guy pretty much his whole career. He's been a guy that a couple times has been an all-star. Here and there, he'll have a really good season. But he's a solid number 3 or 4 starter. He's going to give you 200 innings almost guaranteed when he's able to stay healthy. And he's been able to do that for quite a while now. 13-10 with a 3.69 ERA last season and 212 innings. He's an innings eater. The thing that you worry about him is he going to eat you innings productively, or is he going to have an ERA over 4 like he did in 2010, or is he going to have a 3.69 which you can really handle, or even a 3.23 like he did in 2009? Is he going to be that Randy Wolf or the 2010 Randy Wolf? Sean Markham, this is a guy that had some injuries early on last season, but came on, ended up making 33 total starts, went 13-7 with a 3.54 ERA. He has been one of the more overlooked pitchers. I don't know if underrated is the right word, but overlooked, because the last 3 seasons, in 2008, 9-7 with a 3.39 ERA, he only made 27 total starts. A 3.39 ERA is a really solid ERA in the AL East. 2010, 13-8 with a 3.64 ERA. Okay, it's not as good, but it still proves that this guy is the real deal, I think. And then 13-7 last year with the 3.54 ERA, went over 200 innings for the first time in his career, which is a benchmark that all pitchers should aim to reach for. And I think that he can do even better this season, especially if Greinke has a better season, and we even see a guy like Yovani Gallardo take that next step. As the number 4 starter, this is one of the, if not the best, one of the best number 4 starters in the game right now. I think the ERA could come down into the 3.40s this season. So overall, and we'll get with Chris Narveson now, he's not really a great pitcher, but at number 5, you're not going to get a great guy. You'd hope you bring the ERA a little closer to 4 this year. Overall, with this rotation, it's a matter of if some guys like Greinke can make some small improvements, Markham, Randy Wolf, Yovani Gallardo, then that adds up, and then ultimately we can see these guys have an even better season than they did last year in terms of pitching. I don't know if they're going to be able to do what they did in the lineup, but we'll see. In the bullpen, then, you have Cameron Lowe. We'll start with him. 4-7 last year with a 3.54 ERA. He was a very valuable middle reliever for them last season. Francisco Rodriguez, K-Rod, accepted arbitration this offseason after not being able to find a major league closing job. Accepted arbitration for something like $7 to $10 million, somewhere in that area. Came on and had a really nice season. I know all the distractions have been there. I know he's not the pitcher he once was. I mean, I know he saved 62 games in 2008. Was one of the best pitchers or relievers in the game from like 2005 to 2008 or 9. Oh, really 8. So once he went to the Mets, he really struggled there. And I think that he can be a great setup man. He's lost some velocity on his fastball, but what he's done over the past 2 seasons is he reinvented himself. If he can stay out of trouble, out of disputes, all that stuff, not beat his father-in-law up in the clubhouse might be a good idea. I think that he will be one of the best setup men in the league because he came on very strong last season in his time with the Brewers. He went 4-0 with a 1.86 ERA in 31 games for them. I don't think that there's any questions about who was the closer on this team because I think John Axford is one of the top 5 closers in the game right now, and he's only getting started. In 2010, then he has no homo here, but he has an extremely, just great mustache. Wish I could grow that. 8-2 with a 2.48 ERA in 2010, 24-27 saves, and then in 2011 had probably the best year for a closer last season. went 2 besides Mariano Rivera's right there too. Went 2-2 with a 1.95 ERA, saved 46 out of 48 attempts, and really did not get a ton of publicity. There were people saying when they acquired K-Rod, well, maybe K-Rod should be the closer. John Axford is one of the best closers in the game right now. He's only 29 years old, so he's got a bright future ahead of him. Actually, he'll be 29 tomorrow. And happy birthday, John Axford. Overall, my thoughts on the Brewers. I think that the rotation's going to make some improvements, but I think that the drop-off from the lineup with losing Prince Fielder, and I don't think Ryan Braun's going to be able to duplicate what he did, which will have a huge effect on guys like Corey Hart. I think that the Brewers are going to struggle this season early on, and I think that they will make a push late in the season, but ultimately they will miss out on the playoffs. They'll be one of those teams right in the hunt for the wild card. They'll certainly be a buyer at the deadline, but this is kind of a transition year, and we're going to have to see what happens with the Brewers. Guys like Zach Greinke in the final years of their deal, we'll see what direction the Brewers decide to go on. Hit me up on Twitter. We'll do March Madness review videos as soon as these games go final night. See you guys later. #Deuces.